Hey everyone, before I get started, I just want to remind you that if you like my content, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and then join the MilitiaMan and Crew Patreon community by clicking the link in the caption. Hey everybody, it's MilitiaMan. It's Saturday afternoon. I want to wish everybody a happy weekend. This has been a great day for us, and this has been a good week because there's been a lot of information coming through, and we have a lot of stuff to talk about today. Um, we have we've had the private banking sector, we've had the government sector, uh, we've had we've had the prime minister, we've had the UN meetings, we've had all these different things that have come to play. And one of the first things, though, before I get to that, is that I'd like to thank some of the people out there in the internet world that are kind and have good things to say about Militiaman and Crew. And Mark Z, shout out to you. My hat's off, my friend. You've been very kind. Being able to be in this world and give people information is not always an easy thing to do. It's a lot of hard work. You look like you do it on a regular basis. I know what I've been doing. I'm kind of new at it, even though I've been doing it for probably 10 years. To the internet, it's a new experience. But thank you very much for your kind support. And I like all your followers too. They've been great also. So shout out to you. But on the main thing that we're looking at today and over the next few days is that, Iraq is giving a lot of support for going to the public sector, private sector, and going from the public sector to the private sector. Then there's going to be a symbiotic relationship, and they're going to need to do that, and they're doing it quickly. Um, One of the things that is that we have to realize is that um, the electronic system, the electronic payment systems, the electronic credit card systems, the electronic taxes and tariffs and borders systems, all of those are going to be facilitating what we'll talk about a little bit tonight is trade through the private sector. But again, the government sector and the government state banks and then the private banks, they're going to have to be on the same page, and they are on the same page. So when I say they're on the same page, is that they're going to be using the similar platforms. You're going to have to qualify to be able to do trade with them. It's just like getting the dollar if you want to travel to go to America or you want to go to Europe or wherever to be able to travel. You're going to have um, your license, you're going to have documentation and ID, etc. Well, even that goes from the citizens, it goes up into the merchants and to the big business. They need to be, uh, they have to prove who they are and where the money's coming and going because they've had a lot of smuggling and all that kind of stuff. So the private sector is really a big thing. And sometimes there's different factions and different people that take into consideration is kind of important because the coordination framework group, Al Sudani is part of that, but there's certain parts of that group aren't really too happy about this circumstance with having to clear the U.S. dollar through this um, ISO 2022. I always get that kind of messed up how it's pronounced, but the fact is that they aren't going to stop using the new system. So everybody's going to have to be on board, and that includes all the merchants, et cetera. And so with having that said, there's this Assad block of the coordination framework. You had the political wing of Assad. I guess it's Assad al-Haq movement. It's part of the coordination framework. Friday, they said that in the coming days they'll witness a parliamentary revolution to activate a Chinese agreement. Well, the Chinese agreement is that we know that the Chinese yuan is cleared through with the Iraqi dinar, and so they're going to be doing trade. We have the licensing rounds, the 5 that came through just last week. So obviously they had to clear to make sure that system's going to work, and obviously it did. Um, Realize that Iraq's trade is going to be through all the different countries around the world, around their region, and in the world. And the Silk Road Initiative is going to come into Iraq. And with Iraq getting oil deals, gas deals, you can bet your sweet baby that these guys have this all set up and ready to go. Whether it's going to be somewhat of an Iranian influence or if it's going to be a Washington influence. But there's some tension there. So anyway, um, the the partnership with the U.S. is not going to go away. Okay, we know that Alina Romanowski has been there. She's I understand they call her auntie. Some like her and some don't. Okay, so it doesn't matter. But she's part of the United States, and she's the ambassador, and she's been around a long time. I believe she's been around for about 40 years, so she knows the etiquette of what's supposed to be done and what's not supposed to be done. And so let's see how that goes. But the whole deal is that that she is saying to us that there's a comprehensive American Iraq partnership. Okay, so just because China is going to be working there and other countries are going to be working there, the United States is going to be working there, and they're all having one common goal, it sounds like, and that's to get Iraq into the private sector so that they can do business. So China can do business, the United States, Germany can do business. All these deals that we talked about with Munich, all these deals that we talked about starting in Istanbul to New York to Washington D.C. All of these things have been huge. That comes right back to Gutierrez, the UN Director General. He Secretary General, forgive me. He came in and he's wanting to implement and have them implement the Article 140 agreement. They want them to get the Sinjar agreement done. He wants all of that implemented, the HCL implemented. So he's supporting it, and he's telling us that the international world are supporting Iraq for doing reforms. So at the moment, all we see is everything going towards the private sector. Gutierrez, I think one of his main points was all these agreements, the agreement between Erbil and Baghdad, the agreement between the Sinjar agreement. It says they must be manipulated, implemented. That's a fascinating thing. That's powerful language. We're not just talking any guy off the street here. We're talking about the United Nations. Whether we like or agree with the United Nations or not, you know what? When he talks, the world's listening. So those calls for all of these must be implemented. I take it pretty serious, and I think you should too. And I think it's a good sign. The Article 140 agreement. Look, it's been around for at least 20 years, or that I know of. Okay, one of the articles it's basically asking is the Article 140 is it going to become a reality? And I can say that from what we're reading here is that the answer to that question is yes. And they're taking it really serious. The Kurdistan region, and Baghdad both are taking the whole thing in a serious tone and in a positive tone. Okay, that's to me is really good, because if they've got agreements and they're not just political concessions or memorandums of understanding, but if they have agreements that are constitutionally enforceable, that's what we're looking for. And interestingly enough, I believe I have here, it says this article has been achieved, which Article 140 has been achieved on the ground in legal and constitutional context. Take that for what it's worth. I mean, they're talking that they have achieved on the ground legal and constitutional. Okay, cool. So with that real seriousness on the part of the Prime Minister, Shia al-Sadani, his provisions of the political agreement are at the foremost implementation, Article 140 of the Iraqi Constitution. That's at the foremost. Okay, so here it says there's no political concessions, rather that they are agreements. And agreements, if you understand that concessions or memorandum of understandings, they're not agreements. Agreements, they're bigger. They're in stone. Primarily, they're more serious. And it says that these agreements that they have are in per the Iraqi Constitution and the laws that are in force now. So obviously this is a big deal. It's really a good deal, and I'm really pleased to see that. Um, a little bit further into this, there's been some other circumstances that we've seen them talk about in the last week about types of agreements. Okay, and some of these agreements have to pertain to the 2023 budget, that pertains to paying the Peshmerga, paying the oil contracting workers, um, associated, if the census is off, and there's payments that need to be uh, adjusted in the Kurdistan favor. Iraq's going to pay for that. And one article suggests that they'll get, because of the oil and gas law being sorted, and that, if you recall, in the past, it was only off of oil. Now they have the taxes and tariffs at the borders, and now they have the liquid natural gas to deal with, and these licensing concessions. So 12.67 might sound like it's little and it's an undercut, but when you add in all that extra benefit and with no debt, because they're not paying for the Peshmerga, they're not paying for those contractors, etc., you can see that maybe this was a really sweet deal. And basically they're saying all they need to do is put the final touches on it, to the end of it. And so a really interesting point to that is that it says the federal government targets a region with a small share in the 2023 budget. But the one point I'd like to bring up is that it says after the oil and gas law and Article 140. So in other words, again, it's reiterating that after the oil and gas law and Article 140 done, the budget law became a dilemma. So that's the budget law, and we haven't seen the budget law yet. They said in December 2022 that they'd have it done in 2 weeks. Well, it's March. I mean, they haven't got it done yet. So obviously there's a component that needs to be sorted, and it needs to be addressed to have all this flow, which is coming back to the private sector. Having a symbiotic relationship with the private sector and the government. Okay, it's just something that they're gonna do that electronically. We talked about the banking, we talked about the government, we talked about the taxes and tariffs at the borders. The private sector, they're going to be treated pretty much the same way, and we're going to see that here shortly with people talking about the private sector. We have a launch of a program that is called the GIZ, and it's a German agency from international cooperation. They developed effectively a platform for the private sector. They opened this up back in 2017, and they've been working on it since. It's been quite a few years, as you can see. But they've launched a program that creates the conditions for growth of the private sector and the creation of job opportunities. This place is going to rock and roll with job opportunities. Okay, it's going to be a really big deal. I guess the conditions for economic growth is going to be phenomenal. The platform is for professionals, and it's basically something to bridge the gap for the employment opportunities. Okay. One last thing I think on that was, I guess they've done millions of files. They have millions of files of data, and so they're getting ready to, and they put all these millions of files into one single file, and so that they'll be able to facilitate this in a very quick manner. And are obviously they're working on it now. Just back to a little bit of a sidebar. When we're talking about jobs, we're talking about labor. So they passed a labor law just recently that's going to benefit the women. It's going to create an environment where the child labor should go away. All of those things should be taken care of. But the main thing is that they're going after the private sector and the publicly. This new platform will assist in the growth of the country. Just like this week, they did the accession into the International Trucking Union. That's going to bring thousands of trucks into the country. Those trucks need support. Each one of those trucks is going to have a driver. He's going to have to have, you know, what do you call it? They got to get a hotel room. They got to have food. They got to have entertainment. They got to have all those things. Forgive me, but that's the thing about it. So you got to think of the big scale, but think of thousands of trucks. Think of the service industry, the gas stations, the convenience stores, tires, gas, fuel for all these different trucks, right? You got to have all that. And that's what they're talking about here. And they're going to have new employees. For every house they built or for every job they build, there's got to be 4 to 10 jobs created for every job they bring in. That's just the way the world works. So we're going to see this, and we're seeing it now. So the accession to the International Land Transport Agreement, that was huge. They didn't have that. They didn't have the labor law. So with that said, there's even an organization where Iraq is going to be the director or lead, the chairman of the board of directors for the Arab Labor Organization. They're going to have that, and that starts tomorrow. So keep that kind of stuff in mind. So when I say they're going to the private sector, they're like on steroids. Let's see, what's this one? Al-Sudani directs and reviews sums of money deducted from salaries, employees, retirees, and social protection. Basically, what they're doing is they're going to be unifying the Treasury account. Instead of having the Treasury's account in many different banks, they're going to bring all that money into one place, a central hub, so that they can monitor that. And then they'll be able to allocate those monies to keep from having an unjust circumstance to the citizens. If they couldn't keep track of the money outside of one account, the citizens are going to get hurt. The bottom line is that the state needs to have an accountability, and they're going to have that accountability. And this was talked about today, or was it today? It was yesterday. Having a unified treasury. So that is really a big thing. So it's basically these guys are moving forward, and they're knocking the pins over to get it done. And so I'm really pretty happy about it. The next thing is that we get down to, well, what happened today is that the central bank announced a focus on the reforms for electronic payments and operation of the banking sector. It says it indicated the tendency to use cash machines and reduce cash. Okay, so that's the whole goal of this whole thing, is eventually they're going to have less cash. They're going to a digital world. It's going to be like, well, here in the United States, a lot of people use their debit card. They swipe the card. They don't use a whole lot of cash. And it's just basically, it's not cash less, it's less cash society. And that's what they're doing. And there's nothing, well, to some people, there's nothing wrong with it. To some people, they're not going to be able to deal with it. But hey, it's beyond my pay grade. Let's see. Basically, the banking sector is witnessing clear reforms that started with the pressure from the external transfers. External transfers is that they had a hard time moving money across borders, but now they're not going to have a problem with that. It says they're continuously reforming at all levels, and there's a reform in electronic payments. Everything is electronic payments. We talked about the ICE-CUDA system, the BUNA system, the SWIFT system, all electronic, fast, furious, and transparent. That's why the corrupt don't like it. The corrupt are going to get caught. If you don't get on board, the merchants don't get on board. They don't go to the private sector. They're gonna have to face the consequences. It's change is hard for people. Trust me, I know what change is like. Central bank has worked to facilitate financing for merchants and the external transfer of trade, and a clear commitment to the anti-money laundering law to financing, pointing out that the banking sector is the main sector in the economic development, okay? It's really important that they know that the banking sector at the beginning of going to the private sector is really a big deal. It goes on and it says the central bank works with legislators and issues instructions in orders to facilitate proper access to foreign currency. Okay, proper access to foreign currency. We come back full circle to we talk about what? The euro's going to trade, the won's going to trade, the US dollar's going to trade, the British pound's going to trade. All of these different things are going to be trading, and that's what they're going to do. And one of the biggest concerns and one of the extensive measures of the central bank is an important aspect that falls on the ground of the legislation is all about an issue of the exchange rate that occupies all citizens. And the focus on that is that they want to have a stability for their exchange rate. And that's what they're talking about going into the future. It's everyone's responsibility. So all the black market, all the parallel market, it's on your back now. If you're not getting on the platform and you're a merchant and people know about it, you might not be in a good position. Okay, so that's where the stability comes in. And so that's why they would say it's on everybody's back. Okay, so ultimately the central bank works and it legislates, it issues instructions and orders to facilitate proper access to foreign currency, whether they are travelers or merchants. So here we are, the real sector. The real sector is the private sector and the banking sector. The banking sector is both private and public, and that's where we're at. They're going to all be able to communicate on a similar platform. So the government is going to be able to buy products across the borders for if they need cement, if they need some food, they need tomatoes, whatever they need, they're going to be able to do that. Just like the public, they're going to be able to go to these platforms, be able to buy and sell, trade, and have it legit. And it'll be taxed accordingly because the system is completely electronic and able to do so. So keep that in mind. The next thing was that the Kurds, not everybody realized this, but it's known now since the 28th of this month, last month, that the My Account system was told to be out and about. Nobody really heard about it until the 28th, and today's the 4th. They're reiterating it, and the My Account is a electronic system that the Kurdistan region has showcased, and it is to be for millions of citizens, or at least at this stage of the game, there's millions of citizens have been directed to use an individual banking service. It's a digital platform, okay? And it provides ATM machines, all kinds of things. There's going to be thousands of ATM machines utilizing this. So it says the launch My Account initiative for employees and retirees is a comprehensive financial program. And that got started on the 28th, or did it? No, it actually goes back 2 years. They started the process 2 years ago. So they've actually been working it, making sure it's running and available. Now they're just telling you it's a pilot program. Well, I don't know about that. It just seems to me as like if you've been involved for 2 years and all of a sudden just now coming up with a pilot program, I think that's maybe just a little bit soft, but that's just me. It says basically through it's all the salaries and payments will be done through a network of automated teller machines at thousands of locations. So you can bet that these guys have already got it set up, because if they've already got ATM machines in place, they know how to run them. So here's the last thing that I want to say about this, and it is, I think, really important, is because what they're talking about, it says, in addition to enabling public sector employees to access modern banking services, it says such as loans, savings, and local and international transfers, the possibility of international withdrawals, and a digital and online payments. So what we're talking about is international transfers, international withdrawals, international payments, and we're talking about digitally. And you haven't done that before, and you haven't done it at a program rate, my bad, an official rate of 1460, 1190, 1310, or 1166. They have never done that, never been allowed to do that. Why would they do that now at 1310? My view, they won't. So anyway, all of this that I brought to you today is really fascinating, because it just means that going from a public country to a private sector that is it's phenomenal. And here's on the legal side, what they're talking about is the Parliament of Finance recommends taking practical measures to support the private sector. So the legal side of the Parliament of Finance is supporting, let's go to the private sector. Key point here is the elements of Iraq's success and its economic integrations are solid, and the necessity of diagnosing the imbalances is there. The only reluctance that they have is for the merchants being on the platform of the central bank. They believe that they got that fixed. Another thing is that they're moving towards that private sector because of they're looking for the non-oil partnerships to be sought. And non-oil means that we're not talking about oil in general. We're talking about income streams. They're going to come from all the things that we talked about: trucking, services, gas, food, lodging. All these different things are going to come. That income stream, the tourism, everything is going to drive those taxes and tariffs at the borders. Is going to bring them an income that's equal to or better than the oil, and that doesn't even include the liquid natural gas. So here again, they're going to the private sector. It's all about jobs. And look what they said, as far as the state cannot manage all of its institutions by itself, even the removal of waste, repair of electricity, the telephone networks, internet, all that stuff is going to take the private sector. So now you can probably see some of the reasons why I'm pretty excited about being here and being able to share this with you this afternoon on a Saturday. So hey, if you like the content, give me a shout out. Thanks, Mark Z, and all the others that came to Patreon and became members. Really good. Really appreciate it. And if you like that like button, and if you see a donate button, you want to help create content for us, please do so. Thank you very much. Once again, guys, don't forget to hit that like button if you like this content. Subscribe to the channel or join us at the MilitiaMan and Crew Patreon community for even more exclusive content. You can also donate to this channel by hitting the links in the banner to help keep this page up and running. Your generous support is greatly appreciated, as always. Much, much appreciated. Thank you so much and have a great day.